Jefferson shaped the belief that freedom is destiny, but that freedom always came at a price. In an age that called man a servant, Thomas Jefferson dared to write that all are created equal, even if he couldn't grasp the true meaning of his own words. He was a product of the very class hierarchy he intended to demolish, battling the inherited status quo of monarchy and privilege with nothing but pure, unyielding reason. He was a son of the very status quo he sought to dismantle. In American classrooms, Thomas Jefferson is revered as the singular architect of liberty, the mind who transformed rebellious subjects into self-governing citizens. His pen didn't merely draft the Declaration of Independence, it defined the core American myth, the sovereign individual. This individual is a self-made hero, unbound by the chains of tradition or external authority, guided only by the sacred light of rational inquiry. This ideology, which effectively turned religious faith into secular logic and imperial subjects, into rights-bearing individuals, became the national gospel. This foundational belief dictates the American view of politics, economy, and morality even today, underscoring the notion that the state's highest duty is not to God or king, but to the protection of individual pursuit. However, for the 18th century American elite, freedom was intrinsically linked to the right to possess land, ideas, and most crushingly, people. The virtuous propertied elite saw themselves as the natural stewards of society, their political choices justified by their ownership, and their supposed superior Enlightenment education. A keen European traveler like the Frenchman Marquis de Condorcet would have seen not a republic of free men, but a peculiar monarchy without crowns where the power was simply distributed among a land-owning oligarchy rather than held by a single king. The Enlightenment's brilliant light stopped abruptly at the boundary of the plantation. Reason, that sacred revolutionary tool, was effortlessly used to rationalize the most profound human unreason: chattel slavery. Jefferson was a man who transcended his time with revolutionary ideas, yet simultaneously embodied its most brutal economic limitations. His philosophical vision was vast and forward-looking. His moral proximity to those he enslaved was painfully narrow. He sincerely believed that equality was a destiny for the American project, a horizon to be eventually reached, not the immediate starting point. He was focused on the future, but tragically stumbling over the contradictions of his present. An immediate French abolitionist like Etienne Clavière might have called him a genius, and an unforgivable accomplice, a theoretical liberator who was a practical tyrant. The philosophical contradiction was not an accident of history. It was a foundational brick. The freedom for some required the simultaneous bondage of others. Was it truly impossible for a man of his unparalleled intellect to think differently? To see past the ledger and the vast cotton fields that sustained his existence? Perhaps it was asking too much for a Virginia slaveholder to truly see beyond the financial and social bedrock of his own plantation. Self-interest remains the most powerful and blinding ideology. But the irony is sharp and potent. How did the sacred revolutionary power of Enlightenment reason conveniently stop right at the doors of the wealthy manor? We can and must respect the visionary scope of the idea he unleashed upon the world, while fully acknowledging the brutal fact that he remained an agent of the very oppression he so eloquently condemned in theory. Jefferson constantly dreamed of and advocated for the eventual end of the institution of slavery in philosophical terms. He wrote countless letters expressing his moral discomfort and the danger slavery posed to the soul of the Republic. Yet, when his final will was read, the great liberator of the American mind freed less than 10 of the hundreds of human beings he owned, and those freed were often his own blood relatives. The final intimate contradiction of the man is the American blueprint in miniature, the grand, inspiring ideal, perpetually undermined by immediate, practical self-preservation and financial entanglement. Jefferson enshrined the individual as the sacred temple of American reason and freedom, and that belief is now irrevocably woven into the national DNA. Today, his pursuit of happiness has largely become the pursuit of consumption, and the individual is often isolated in a vast digital echo chamber. The sacred freedom has transformed into an economic imperative. We live surrounded by these temples of individual liberty, from the free market to the aggressive defense of free speech. But how often does self-interest prevail over the greater, collective reason? Jefferson freed an idea. The ultimate, defining question for the nation 2 centuries later is, are we still prisoners of the tragic contradictory terms he set? The freedom is undeniably ours, yet the full price for its foundation is still being calculated. If this deep dive into Jefferson's profound contradictions illuminated your understanding of the American story, please hit the like button, subscribe for more unvarnished historical analysis, and tell us in the comments below, are we still living in the shadow of Jefferson's ideas?